Thank you for being here. I wanted to have a format of a chat, more interactive towards the end. And I want to chat about our experiences on the fundamentals of a Web3 game. All right, so in 1971, Dr. Edward Deci and his friends make a wonderful experiment with psychology students. So they have two groups of students, and they ask these students to solve a Soma cubic puzzle. It's like three-dimensional Tetris pieces. You try to make puzzles. And group one, they just play for fun. Group two are rewarded, are paid for each cube they can make. And then they watch, they measure the time, they do playing and everything. And those in the second group who are paid to play more. That's okay. That was mainstream theory. But then they have another session where both group guys are left alone with the same cubes and with magazines and other toys. And then the experimenters watch what happens. So guess what happens? Those who are not paid to solve the cubic puzzles keep playing, even after Dr. Deci says, time's up, and leaves the room. But that's what happens when mom says, okay, kid, time's up, stop playing. The kid wants to keep playing. That's what happens to group one. They keep playing with those puzzles. But what happens to the group two? When Deci says, time's up, this time they're not paid in this session, they stop playing. You don't pay me, I don't do it. So this shook the mainstream theory of psychology, so that a lot of experiments were done to attack the findings. In the meantime, I have to give credit to Mark Leppard, who independently did a similar experiment, this time with kids, not college students, preschool kids, little kids. And this experiment is famous because it was done on a special school for such experiments, very controlled experiment. So in a classroom, in the first hour of every day, they put a one-way mirror and a table and with magic markers and paper to draw. And in their free time, some of the kids go there and draw pictures. Some others don't. They just play with other toys. So they select those kids who showed interest in drawing, who love drawing. So they take them to another experiment. The same classroom, the same table, the same one-way mirror. So they divide the kids into three groups this time, a more detailed and careful experiment. Group number one, just go there, toys, paper, magic marker. They just draw for fun. Group number two, they were promised beforehand. It's a contract. The experimenters say, hey, look, if you draw pictures instead of playing with other toys, we're going to pay you with this badge, the good player badge. You can walk around in school. You know, that's the best currency you can get for a kid of that age. So third group were not contracted beforehand, but received the same badge of honor, Medal of Honor, unexpectedly. Okay, fine. They watch from the mirror what's happening. And the kids that were contracted to draw pictures did draw pictures, spent more time drawing. So that's okay. But 2 weeks later, they took all the kids to the same setup, same room, and watch what's happening. And statistically, significantly, those who were contracted before, those who played to earn, did not show any interest in drawing, whereas the other kids that were drawing for fun did show interest. And remember, all of these kids already had fun and interest in drawing. So this experiment furthermore shows that if you pay somebody to do a task that they love, it harms the fun part. And this experiment kind of divided the psychology, planet into two camps and started a series of battles and wars. On one side, reward helps. On the other side, it harms the fun part. And finally, Michael Ross put an end to the battle with an experiment on drums. Again, same setup, similar stuff with drums. Almost adults playing drums, the same result. Okay, so this is number one. And I read about these experiments years ago, many years ago, thanks to Dr. Bolat. I attended his course way before I started in game development and blockchain development. And end of 2020, early 21, when I got myself into blockchain game development, I started reading about what's going on in this space, what people are up to. And first part was cool about, freedom of ownership, the ability to trade your assets independently from the game studio. These were cool stuff. But when I hit the play to earn term, I had a bad taste. I didn't know then why I had a bad taste. I didn't recall these papers I have read like years ago, but I had a bad taste. And I struggled because it was when Axie Infinity hype was rising. People were cheerful. People were making a lot of money, billions of dollars in a game that Ubisoft would be jealous. So there was a conflict. The evidence was not matching my bad taste. So as a skeptic, I said, okay, play to earn might be into something, but then I remembered these experiments. Then I went back to this wonderful book that introduced me those experiments. Don't Punish Me with Reward by Dr. Bolat. So when I read these experiments back again, I was sure. I was able to do the math, and I was able to see that play-to-earn games are doomed to fail, and that ecstasy is just temporary. And all these pyramid schemes, you can see it all over the math. And so I talked to my team, who had experts, one legendary game developer, Mevding. He has developed globally award-winning games several times for Activision, Ubisoft, and everything. And when I told about this idea, I didn't explain these experiments. When I tried to learn what he thinks about play to earn, he pretty much said the same thing. It's like, am I going to pay gamers to play my games attitude? That comes from a veteran, not a scientist, a game developer and producer. So I was relaxed by that endorsement. So the first thing we as a team try to do when the play-to-earn hype was rising, that was like Q1 21, Q2 21, was to criticize play-to-earn. And we coined the term play and earn, okay? And that was basically the separation of powers in place. So we could see that some of the gamers started to like the freedom to trade their stuff, independent of the game studio. And my brother, my co-founding partner, also told me about his experience in World of Warcraft times. He plays World of Warcraft, he loves it, he spends money and time and everything, and then he tries to sell his account. He lives in Istanbul. Some guy from Ankara, like, 400 kilometers away, wants to buy. They agree on the price, but he has to find a friend from the same company who works in the Ankara office. He sends him the disk, and then the other guy in between does the job, and there's a lot of trust involved. So being able to do this trade peer-to-peer, secured by cryptographic technology, having this separation of powers in place, is fun. So that was what we mean by saying play and earn. You earn game assets, paying and playing, and you own them truly. So that you can, if you want, by the way, if you want, you can have self-custody, this censorship resistance provided by cryptography, by software, rather than by the word of a game developer. So that was the part we had focused. And we said game first. There is some other aspect of these experiments. It's like, imagine a kid. Do we pay our kids? I don't pay my son to play soccer because he loves soccer. In fact, we find it hard to take him back home playing soccer. We don't pay our kids to watch their favorite cartoons. And they subconsciously know that if something is fun, good, interesting, I don't get paid. Whereas if I get paid, could be money, reward, anything. It's got to be uncool. It's got to be uncool. And that is not thinking, that's subconscious. We have that in adults as well. There are a lot of experiments proving this, what they call cognitive dissonance. You don't want to have this paradox between your thoughts and your behavior and everything. And at the end of the day, experiments show that if I try to reward something to do someone to do a task, they start to believe it's not going to be fun. Okay, so when we combine all these scientific findings, okay, we end up with the fact that play to earn, even the very term it is doomed to fail. So that thing's got to go. So that's why we say Web3 gaming now. All these NFTs on play-to-earn mechanics and on other schemes failed, crashed. They have a bad name now. Even the blockchain has a very bad name now. So we introduced Web3 gaming into space, introduced Web3 gaming. But this time we want to make it right. Because when the bull was around, I have a degree in electronics engineering. We have a term called signal-to-noise ratio. Information is at the signal, but we got noise all over the place. And we want the signal-to-noise ratio to be high enough. So in the bull, when we have hype all around, even like scam projects that don't announce their teams, just a copycat white paper, could find money easily, their tokens like 100x instantly at IDO, we had a lot of noise. But with the bear coming, I love this bear. I have been all over the place in the world. I was in New York City, and in the Avalanche House, I met some people from the crypto space in New York City. Then I flew to Seoul, the Korean blockchain week. I was in Gamescom like 2 weeks ago, in Istanbul, all over the place. And I can tell this bear is good. This bear is one of the good bears. There's a lot of innovation, people, the real people that have good command of the scientific background, good game developers, scientists are now talking to each other, and they're able to, differentiate between the cool guys, uncool guys, good projects, uncool projects, good thesis, bad thesis, so we can experiment, test our results. So that's why I would say I am more bullish on Web3 gaming. But there's a caveat. We have to use the scientific method. We have to test ideas. We have to have skepticism that we can be wrong on some of the things that I would request the play-to-earn guys to have that skepticism as well. And if we do that, if we come up with right ideas, I experienced in Gamescom talking to real game developers, big studios, big players of the space that I feared would make fun of me when I talked to them about Web3 gaming. At first, I had some, bad reactions. Not bad, but negative reactions. But when I told them about some of the things that I'm talking today here, they said, oh, that makes sense. And I could see interest in a great deal of them. So, the fundamentals of a good Web3 game. The most fundamental is this: not play to earn. So all the second fundamentals or the following fundamentals come from the real gaming industry. You know, DJan speaking, we're gonna disrupt the gaming industry. It means it's a big, successful thing. So the gaming industry, as my colleagues told before me, is like $200, $300 billion business. It's a sustainable business. It's growing. So there's a success there. And there are best practices there. Free of charge. Go grab them. And you had fantastic, awesome speaks today here and in other places yesterday and today about the best practices for user acquisition, retention, attention monetization, how to make games fun. We will use the same practices. So game first, best practices of gaming are there. We have to use those best practices. So fundamentals of a successful Web3 game. Number 2 is all these best practices of the gaming industry to be applied. So Mert, before me, beautifully explained some examples like in-app purchases, for example. In this Web3 world, we give the option to the gamer. We let the gamer decide how much self-custody he wishes. We have measured in Heroes Chain, our experimental, innovative game that we're testing all the ideas I'm talking today. We see results. We experiment, we measure results, and we see that a great deal of gamers still want convenience, like fiat-friendly convenience. I just want to play the game. Most of our community members are coming from our X games, by Mevding mostly. So they want convenience. So I can say that the vast majority of the gamers out there, if we're aiming those 3 billion plus gamers, they just want to keep playing the game. A great deal doesn't know even about blockchain. So the percentage that would want self-custody, I want to be able to trade my assets freely, would be minority still. But it is increasing. So there's a trend there. So we should take that into account. And so let me have a paragraph here about the fundamentals of Web3 gaming, separation of powers. So we have seen in governance that separation of powers is a good thing. In democracies, when it's implemented well, people love the trust, and so there's this emergent phenomena where you have some success, trust, innovation, fun, economies now, welfare increasing. So I think one of the cool things, I have talked about the uncool things that were implemented in the Web3 world, like play to earn, but let me talk about some cool things from the Web3 world. And one is this separation of powers thing. So like the game studio is developing the game. That's it. That's its domain of power. Then, if they want to give the option to the gamer of self-custody, they develop these smart contracts and deploy them on a mainnet, which is a universal machine running the smart contracts. And it's open source. Everybody knows the rules of the game regarding NFT trade. Everybody knows if there's token involved, the rules of the game regarding token trade. And once deployed, it's an arrow leaving your ball. The game studio can't stop it, can't change it. That's the beauty. It's the power of the mainnet. But the mainnet, on the other hand, runs every smart contract deployed. Can't deny running a smart contract. Again, can't change, alter, can't stop. And the gamers, like the jurisdiction or judges, they watch the game, check the team maybe, they check the smart contracts and everything, and the mainnet it is installed on. So if they like it, they play it. So that's the separation of powers we have in the Web3 context. And on the other hand, there's also feedback among these players, the gamers and game studio, between the mainnet and the game studio, etc. And we have this emergent phenomenon that emerges, that's this fun part that gives the gamers the option. That's important. We can't decide on behalf of the gamer. Okay, we got degens in blockchain world. We're going to change the world. You don't know. Your privacy matters, blah, blah, blah thing. Okay, we need degens for innovation. We get a lot of good vibes from them as well. But I'm old school. I come from Web2 world. And I know that in Web2 world, not only in gaming, that the customer-oriented approach wins in the long term. So it's let the gamer decide. And psychology also says that when you decide something, you try to defend it. You try to think it's good. You try to sustain your behavior in the same direction. So let the gamer decide as an option. If he wants, he can have a self-custody wallet. He can claim his assets to his own wallet. Then they become NFTs. They have to become NFTs because of the technology. And then they can sell them wherever they like. There's a lot of infrastructure out there which is getting better and better. But on the other hand, I envision and forecast from what I have seen so far that for quite some time, like midterm, couple of years, the vast majority will prefer convenience over self-custody because it's easier. And blockchain learning curve is steep. It's getting better and better. But still, they would want to play the games. That's the sustainable thing, I believe. But on the other hand, that being said, I can see and I forecast that the percentage of people that want freedom, self-custody, will increase. And there's another aspect to this separation of powers thing. You can, as a gamer, have the key to your privacy yourself, thanks to cryptography. We call it zero-knowledge technology. It's getting better and better. We're working on it as well. So the whole idea is that I hold the key to how much data I can provide who. And also sometimes I can prove that I pass a criteria without revealing information. A good example would be I apply for a credit for a loan from a bank, and the criteria is you want that loan, you have to have at least $10,000 in your bank. If I can prove that I have at least that amount of money, I can prove that I have at least that amount of money, I pass the criteria without revealing any information about where I have my money, how much money I have, do I have $1 billion or just $10,000? That's what we're talking about here, zero knowledge. And I hold the keys. I think Google and Apple might like that technology as well. So that's another thing, the privacy. And I would still say the majority of the people don't care that much about this privacy, but it's getting attraction. I would say the tendency is the percentage of those who would love to have their keys to their privacy, their control, will increase. And since giving the option to the gamer thing, I think the gaming industry, the classical, the conventional gaming industry should really start, and I see a lot of vendors doing that, also investigating on what the real Web3 technology can offer, can help them with. All right, so I talked about the best practices of Web2 gaming. I think that would be the majority of the fundamentals of a Web3 game because it's a game first. And I also wrapped up some of the things that Web3 is cool about. So Web3 is cool, gaming is cool, its combination can be cool. And I believe it's going to be cool. But remember, option. It's the gamer to decide. Thank you. All right, so any questions? Because I didn't touch to some details, I left to the interactive part. We can talk after the speak. We have a booth here. So any questions, please? Go ahead. Yep.
So you
Uh-huh.
It's empty, you can't attract any more people. But if you pay someone to get in there and have fun, there will be another person who will come. And I think it was the same scenario in New York City in the NFT conference. There
Yep.
were no girls, so they pay some girl to come, some models, and it was a huge success in terms of the conference. So for attracting someone into our game, do you believe that paying them is a good option or not?
Very good question. Very good question. That was one of the topics that I wanted to touch, but I have limited time. But let me answer that. So again, psychology. Remember, science is the best tool we have. Psychological experiments that I've been talking about also show that there are some use cases where paying helps, reward helps. But you have to be very careful, experts have to be there, and it has to be temporary and limited. And in Heroes Chain, we started at game first, play and earn. We criticized play to earn. But along the way, our community, that are mostly gamers, convinced us to have a mini game. Our mini game was not on the roadmap. And we said, no. It's not, first, it's not on the roadmap, but roadmaps can be revised. And we say play to earn is not working, but they convinced us. But it was not only them, and I read some material, and I saw those papers also, which show that there are cases where play to earn can help. But that's not, the genre shouldn't be play to earn. The system shouldn't be play to earn. You can have rewards in a controlled manner. It's got to be temporary and limited. So we were convinced that our mini game could help. And we said, okay, and the resources we had to split were not huge. It's going to be an easy web game. And it helped. Yes, it helped. It brought people, and it was limited, so the budget was not high. We had some from our marketing budget anyway, so the budget plan was not harmed. And guess what happened? Now, guilds were formed. I'm talking about classical RPG guilds, fighting against each other on the minigame, discussing on Discords, forming their own Discord channels and Telegram channels, and they demanded clan versus clan features of the minigame. What the And I was so much, as you can imagine, against play to earn. I find it useful in that use case. But there's a caveat. The guys in the minigame know that that's temporary, that's not the real deal. And luckily, we were able to release our closed beta. We had so much fun with the real full game. You can download and play it now. It's open now. So there's some caveats. You have to be careful. You have to have experts on that. You have to make sure that it doesn't become this play-to-earn thing, as an essence. Thanks for asking. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, it's by Dr. Özgür Bolat. He's a Turkish. If you're Turkish, you're lucky that we have this book by a Turkish academician. It's called Beni Ödülle Cezalandırma. Don't punish me with reward. So also he plays a tribute to giants that on whose shoulders he sits, like Alfie Kohn. He has a similar book called Punished by the Rewards. I recommend you to read it. So probably he named him because he's a fan of Alfie Kohn, I believe. So yeah, Punished by Rewards, Alfie Kohn, Edward Deci. I think I'm gonna wrap this up and make it an article, and I'll tweet about it, and I'll put all the links there. You can do further reading. I really would like you to Google intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, Edward Deci, and everything for further research on the topic. I think we're running out of time. Thanks a lot. We'll be around. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.